You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, ep073. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Hi everybody, we are finally back from our Easter and holiday traveling, and we are here with episode 73 of the Tricorder Transmissions. Always with you are your hosts, Jeff Hewlett.
And Craig Cohen, and we do have to apologize for missing our Easter episode, as you might have seen us announce on Twitter or Facebook, that we had the opportunity to go meet George Takei, and it was the same day that we were going to sit down to record last week's episode, so of course we really had no choice but to go meet George.
You know, it's funny the way that whole thing worked out, because it was one of those conventions that was kind of up in the air until the last possible minute due to some really weird ticketing snafus and schedule
and also
changes.
the day change. Yeah, we were supposed to go on Friday, and then he went Saturday only.
So we did wind up making the last minute decision to go, and it was a very good decision, actually.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most bizarre conventions I think I've been to. Did you get a weird vibe from that convention too?
Yeah, well, it's funny. It doesn't seem like anybody really has a lock on the name Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And if they do, they don't really enforce it. So next month in Philadelphia, they're going to have the Wizard World, I guess, who are as close to the official ones as you can get, Comic-Con. But this was the Greater Philadelphia Comic-Con.
Yeah, or as I posted on Facebook, quasi-Comic-Con.
Yeah, and the thing was, it wasn't incredibly star-studded once you remove George Takei, Walter Koenig, and Nichelle Nichols, and they didn't really have a lot of vendors either. It didn't really seem like an event that needed to be 3 days.
Oh, not at all. In fact, I think we walked the entire vendor floor in less than a half an hour.
Yeah, I was ready to get something to eat.
Yeah, really. I mean, they had, if you were a fan of Power Rangers, they had a lot of the original Power Rangers there, and they had one guy, the priest Gabriel from Walking Dead.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, it really was a kind of a wash. It was very, very, very small, and if you had bought into it because of the Comic-Con name, you were kind of in for some disappointment. But George Takei was awesome, by the way. I don't want to just be down on the con. George was wonderful, full of smiles. We were fortunate to be very, very close to the front of the photo op line. So we were maybe you think the 10th or so people to get in front of him, maybe between the 10th and the 15th.
Well, yeah, we were like third in line, but then they had their VIP line that sort of gives the tut-tut. So, yeah, we were definitely within the first 20 people.
Yeah, for sure. He was very, very nice, very accommodating, more hands-on, noticeably more hands-on than Shatner, who didn't want you to touch him at all. Takei put his arms around you and a big
he shook
smile.
my hand twice.
Mine
shook my
too.
hand coming in, shook my hand going out.
Mine
and
too.
made eye contact with me, which was very cool.
Yeah, and we had a little quick exchange, and we talked for just a brief minute, and it was nice. He was very, very pleasant, and the picture is posted on our Facebook page, and I'll post it with this episode as well, so go ahead and go check it out. And shout out to friend of the show, Steve, who was also there with us. So he's become quite the fixture at the local conventions and even the Vegas convention.
Yeah.
So nice to see him in attendance as always. And maybe if he's so kind, he will also share his George Takei picture with us to post, and we can share it with the listeners so they can get a gander at friend of the show, Steve.
Right on.
So, all right. News this week. A couple of interesting tidbits. There is a trailer that just hit for that new Star Trek Renegades series that had, I guess this had surfaced a long time ago in my memory.
Yeah, is that the one that Tim Russ was involved with?
And Walter Koenig.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is the trailer that I remember seeing a while back. Felt like Star Trek for teenagers.
Right.
It was kind of like a young avant-garde, almost a darker take on Trek. It looked kind of interesting, something that might appear on like the CW, right?
Right. Yeah.
So there's a new trailer out, and it's saying that Renegades will actually debut this summer. So we could have some new Trek headed our way, including one of the original series actors. So that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. And good luck to Walter, and good luck to Tim Russ, who's also a really nice guy. And it looks like Robert Picardo is also involved. And I'm a big Robert Picardo fan, so
Yeah. Yeah.
be nice to see all of them show up. And so here's one I think we can dive into, because I'm on the fence about how I feel about this. But Shatner's big idea for the 50th anniversary of Star Trek seems like a cool concept to me. I don't know if everybody out there in Trek land and listener land has read this yet. I know you have, Craig.
Yeah. I skimmed it.
Yeah, so it looks to me like Shatner is doing something, or wants to do something, that's similar to things that we talk about a lot, and that is the things that Trek kind of predicted or influenced that have come to be in the future,
Yeah.
or are still being worked on today, race relations and technology and things like that. And I like the idea. I think it's a really good idea. I'm just wondering, you know, what service will that do for the fans at the 50th anniversary? This seems like something that could be done anytime. I don't know if it should necessarily be locked into the 50th anniversary of
Yeah.
Trek.
Yeah. But you know what? I think if you frame it with talking heads and voices of the people that were there and lived it, either people that are still with us, or people that are no longer with us and would be there via archival interviews. I think any kind of 50th anniversary, it really needs to serve two purposes. It needs to do the fan service, but at the same time, it has to expose the property to the wider audience and help them understand why people are so excited about a show hitting 50 years, or why they should care about a show that is hitting 50 years. So I think it's kind of a unique idea that Shatner has. And I got to say this, if your CBS and Shatner comes to you with an idea and you look at his track record in regards to how he's presented Star Trek related stuff that he's been involved with since he left the series, you'd almost say that he's got a perfect batting record.
Good points. Good points. I guess for me, I guess it really depends on how it's presented, how it's put together. If they kind of interweave it with, like you said, archival footage and talk from people who were there, and people who were involved in Star Trek, and they directly relate all of that stuff to Star Trek with, in a clear and coherent manner, I think that might work well. I was kind of thinking of it more as like a straight up, documentary or something on just all of these things that are our current state today. But I think if he packages it properly and it's executed well, with strong ties to Star Trek, and I think that might be interesting.
Basing it on like the captains and I forgot the name of that other documentary. He's done a couple of documentaries, and even that footage we saw about Next Generation. I mean, it seems like he's definitely got a handle on how to present Star Trek related media.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I'm still looking to see that Next Generation one. I still haven't found where we can see that here in the States. So maybe there's some problems getting it released here or something of that nature. But hopefully we'll be able to see that soon. So well, looks like the next crossover comic series has come to light now that the Planet of the Apes is wrapping up.
Is this the Green Lantern one?
Yes. Well, I think
Yeah.
I think that this is more relevant today than I don't want to knock the Planet of the Apes. It was excellent and well done, but I think today's superhero culture that we live in, this seems to be pretty relevant and could tap into a different audience, because we're inundated right now with superhero movies and superhero TV shows. It's like it's all the rage. So I think this might be a really smart move, and I think this could really bring in some new eyes.
We'll see. I mean, the Green Lantern is a character that's sort of in need of a little bit of rehabbing himself after that, Ryan Reynolds movie, and but there also is a lot of, for lack of a better word, mythology surrounding Green Lantern and the Green Lantern Corps. You know, we're not even sure, or I haven't looked into it, which Green Lantern this is going to be.
That's true. It doesn't really say. All it says is the Spectrum War, and it will consist of 6 issues. And so I don't want to get into a big conversation about Green Lantern, but the reason that I side is because I think I'm in one of the extreme minority who actually kind of sort of enjoyed the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie in some odd way.
We won't hold it against you.
I don't know why, but I've seen it 3 times, and just kind of on cable, and I was like, caught myself watching it, going, this isn't that bad.
You're a big Blake Lively fan, huh?
No, not really. But I kind of now that I'm seen so many superhero movies, I kind of compare everyone I see to some of the worst ones I've seen, and that one definitely was better than Daredevil was. That was pretty rough.
I think I could debate you on that.
It was better than Elektra.
That I'll give you.
Okay. I'm sure we could go on and on, but we don't want to turn this into a superhero podcast. So,
well, the thing is, though, at what point do these crossovers stop feeling special?
I don't know. I guess it's up to the reader.
Yeah.
I guess it's up to the reader. I actually think this is a good idea. I'm gonna stay on the positive side on this one. I was a little skeptical of the Planet of the Apes one, but that turned out okay. So I'm gonna remain positive here, and I'm gonna look for good things from this.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of our news section. Not much else to report, so I guess we can jump into our commentary track on the Lights of Zetar.
Sure.
Are you ready for some air dates?
I am totally ready.
Okay, well, the Lights of Zetar originally aired on January 31st of 1969, and the remaster was broadcast on June 7th, 2008.
Yeah, and we have from the NBC press release that was issued on January 9th, 1968. Alien entities endanger the Enterprise when they take over the brain of a beautiful lieutenant aboard the ship in The Lights of Zetar on NBC television network's Star Trek, Friday, January 31st.
All right, we will get started with our commentary track in 3, 2, 1.
Another Boss remastered shot.
Yeah, not a flyby, just an underneath the Enterprise shot.
And we get this really sort of somber captain's log from Kirk.
Yeah.
You know, explaining how when a man reaches Scotty's age, and he focuses, or he meets somebody and he focuses on the loneliness in his life. Just a really, really interesting log entry where, the captain's sort of getting into somebody's personal territory.
That's interesting that he would log that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very strange that he would dive into, Scotty's love life in a log. I mean, somebody must review those logs back at Starfleet.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And the other interesting thing is we had another scene, just a really odd zoom in into Captain Kirk's head there.
I don't know if camera shake too.
Yeah, I don't know if the director was trying to see if Shatner was wearing a toque yet at that point or what.
And I love that Chekhov and Sulu were gossiping at the console about Scotty's. Apparently, Scotty's love life must be the talk of the entire ship.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting how that scene opened with dialogue that we didn't hear between Scotty and Mira.
Yeah, I guess they have some kind of pillow talk going on there or something that we're not supposed to be privy to. But I'm assuming that they have some sort of a relationship going at this point that's existed before this episode began. I guess we're supposed to read into the fact they've been, Scotty's had some time to stake his claim and she's amenable. So
that's a great screenshot right there. Imagine that as your desktop.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want them staring at me like that. Cool thought, but
the only thing you need in there is Spock.
Yeah, you kind of can't see him. You can see Uhura off in the background, a little blurred out, but one thing I love about the episode, and they've mentioned it a couple times already, is that planet's called Memory Alpha.
Right.
And I love that name of that planet has been appropriated for one of the prominent Star Trek wiki sites out on the internet. I use it constantly when
So do I.
researching. Yeah, I love that that is mentioned so much prominently and so many times in this episode. It just puts a smile on my face.
Yeah, and this is sort of like what the 23rd century version of Wikipedia. It's what a base down on a planet that basically holds all of the galaxy's information.
And it's that's a really interesting side conversation, that a difference in what Star Trek predicted the future of information archival would be versus where it is today. Like we're talking about, Wikipedia, which is the repository online right now where many people go, and I guess the internet is going to be where all information is located. And Star Trek still has a physical location that people have to travel to, in order to access this information. You would think that it would be easily accessible through computer systems, but there's actually a physical location that you can go to.
Which is interesting because at the point that this episode, at the point that Star Trek was in production, even though it was 50 years ago or close to 50 years ago, there were still computers that were at least being networked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that technology was already sort of being played with. So I'm surprised nobody was, as forward thinking as Star Trek was. I'm surprised that nobody creative, on the creative end was thinking that maybe it could just be a network of some kind.
Yeah, I guess they were still working with giant tapes back then.
Yeah.
As we've seen. So
but
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I do like the concept, though, of this, this sort of warehouse or, this storage facility.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
Like an intergalactic library.
Yeah, I like the way that it looks when they get to the planet, too. Pretty cool remastered vision of what a facility on a planet would look like. It's actually really large. Oh, and there's the Sherry Lewis name, by the way.
Yes. Written by Sherry Lewis, who we all know from, Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop.
Yes.
She had a pretty amazing career. She was born, or she died in 1998 at the age of 65, which is rather young. She was battling cancer. But in her career, she won 12 Emmys and a Peabody Award, which is really remarkable. I mean, she did a lot. I mean, anybody that can help educate kids, was doing it right in my book. And she wrote the episode with her husband, Jeremy Tarcher, who's got one other writing credit, which is for The Sherry Show, that ran in 1975 and 1976.
And she also wanted to play the Mira Romaine role herself.
Wow, and you know what? If Jan Schutten hadn't done such a great job, I would say I would want to see that. But this role is sort of acted to perfection.
Yeah, I think in season 3, she may be one of the best guest stars I've seen. As opposed to, Frank Gorshin is great, but she puts on a very great performance here. And in our continuing "if this was made today" conversation that we always seem to come to.
Yeah.
If this episode was made today, there would be an Easter egg somewhere in this episode where the puppet Lamb Chop would show up, like in the background of somebody's quarters, or it would be when they're doing the inquiry in the room later on, it would be off on a shelf somewhere, like it would be in there.
I don't know. I kind of think that we maybe have a botany scene with Sulu, and it would possibly pop up on like a plant of some kind, and he would, oh my.
It would be an alien plant in the shape of strangely in the shape of a sheep.
Oh, that's
we live in the age of the Easter egg. every TV show has them now, don't they?
Yeah.
So it just makes sense. This makes sense. You notice, I thought this was kind of funny that, when Romaine passed out on the bridge there before, and they called for help, McCoy kind of saunters onto the bridge, doesn't have much of a sense of urgency to him. He's kind of, what's going on here, guys?
Well, maybe in that whole prelude to Scotty and Mira falling in love, there might have been a love triangle that maybe Scotty and McCoy were fighting for her affections.
Oh yeah, maybe McCoy remembers the last time Scotty was into a chick.
Oh no, didn't end
Back in
well.
good old Who Mourns for Adonis. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Scotty's got some issues with women, and if when he's not obsessing over them, he's getting possessed by Jack the Ripper and killing them. And he makes some interesting choices in this episode around his feelings for Romaine, and this episode features some very interesting information about Scotty, I think, and usually we think of Scotty as somebody who is steadfast in his duties and is always ready to play that hero role in on the ship, but in this one he makes some very questionable choices, I think.
Yeah, but you know what the other thing is with this episode is Scotty doesn't feel um, shoehorned in. Whereas in some of the other episodes, it felt like they used Scotty because they needed to use somebody. And this episode at least feels true to his character. For me, at least, it does. It seems like a genuine relationship, at least.
Maybe. I think he goes a little bit far. Like right here, the captain told him not to go to sick bay and to stay at his post, but here he is in sick bay anyway. I don't know. I think it seems he pushes it a little bit far for my taste. But it's very interesting to see this insight into his character and the choices that he makes. He's allowed to do so much more in this episode than he normally is, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she seems to be really argumentative with McCoy.
Yeah, and I guess we'll get into spoiler territory here, but I guess at this point this is the sort of influence of the possession.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. That's a good possibility that her brain waves are being altered by the aliens, and she's. But you notice how fatherly Scotty is being in this sequence here. He's almost like smothering her.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of just there hovering around, and I don't know, he seems to be explaining a lot of things away and almost ignoring what happened to her in a way.
Well, yeah, he's kind of one of those, it's blind love in terms of, you don't want to, look at the reality of a situation because you're afraid it might ruin what you have.
And Nurse Chapel apparently can do a Scottish accent. That was pretty cool.
So I guess while we have her here, and we mentioned her already, we should talk a little bit about Jan Schutten. Born 1932. Around this time, she also was on The Outer Limits, turned up on Ben Casey, an episode of Charlie's Angels, and Quincy M.E., which we've mentioned on this show a couple of times.
Cool. Yeah, I don't recall ever seeing her on any of the shows myself, but
yeah,
always cool to know that they're out there.
I'm amazed that they haven't done a Quincy M.E. reboot yet.
Well, give it time. There's another cool area of the bridge we don't see very often.
Yeah.
Up to the upper, the front left. If you're sitting in the captain's chair, you get the front left of the bridge. It's kind of cool. A little pattern of lights on the wall that don't look a lot like other patterns of lights we've seen on the ship. So a little bit of detail, I guess, they put in there that the breakaway set gave them the angle for the camera to get in there finally, which is cool.
You know what's I'm just noting about this episode now as we're sitting here watching it and talking about it is, Spock serves a small purpose in this episode, but Spock really doesn't do a heck of a lot in this episode.
No, he's quite minimized.
Yeah, which is really, it's a notable absence because normally he's such an integral part of the story.
True. I mean, he really just kind of helps figure some things out in this episode, but he doesn't really have his normal heavy involvement.
Well, yeah, normally we talk about episodes where without Spock, they wouldn't have made it out of the episode. And this is an episode where without Spock, they definitely would have.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns from Spock in this one. He doesn't have experience with this. He's not really sure. And it's pretty much him agreeing with other people when they figure things out.
Yeah, I guess Sherry Lewis might not have been a big Spock fan.
Yeah, no, she wanted, apparently she wanted Scotty to have a love affair because Kirk was the one that always got the girl. So she wanted Scotty to get something.
Mm.
So I guess if we kept on making Star Trek shows back then, had more seasons, maybe everybody would have had a chance to hook up. But so the library planet they were talking about on Memory Alpha has no protection, no shields at all.
No, why would it?
Well, of course, the rationale being that it's supposed to be open to everyone, and the information contained therein is supposed to be available for anyone to come and get it. But
It's like galactic net neutrality.
right, but knowing the dangers that are out there, I mean,
Yeah, what's to stop a rogue Romulan ship from going in and just stealing everything?
yeah, and so while all this Federation knowledge is stored there with no protection whatsoever, so what's to stop the Klingons from coming and just blowing the whole thing up? Interesting choices. Interesting choices. I mean, how much could it have possibly cost to install some shielding there?
Oh yeah, I can't imagine it would have broken any budget.
Yeah. So now we're seeing a premonition, I guess, of sorts. Interesting that they put the still image in her eye. That was an interesting special effect. There's the remastered shot of the facility on the planet. Sort of a geometric shape with some discs coming out of the sides.
Mm-hmm.
And we're beaming down into it. No, here we go. 4 major characters, all off the ship in a dangerous scenario.
Yeah, and a red shirt that lives to tell the tale.
Yeah, no security detail whatsoever.
Yeah. So is Sulu in charge?
Yeah, we see him sitting in the captain's chair when they beam back up. So I guess they leave. He didn't say it, but they leave Sulu in charge. There was a little Dr. McCoy transporter anxiety there on the way down, saying he doesn't like beaming into dark places, which is a pretty cool little character nod.
Yeah.
To his, that's a pretty well-known part of his character. Oh, look, dead Andorians.
Yeah, and then there's that purple-shirted dead person.
I think it's supposed to be a Tellarite.
Yeah, and that is sort of the image that Mira saw, or we saw in Mira's eye. And
by the way, this is the final appearance of Tellarites and Andorians in the original series.
Ah.
We will see them no more.
I miss them already.
Yeah, shame. Well, we won't. It's a shame the last ones we see are dead ones.
I know. Yeah. What a bummer. Now, here we go. In terms of creepy Star Trek moments, this is a top 10 moment for me in terms of creepy Star Trek moments.
Yeah, she does a great job contorting her face.
Yeah, and the sound design, it's really great. It almost reminds me. I wonder if the woman in Total Recall, the 2 Weeks woman, took a nod from this lady in her performance.
Could very well have. It does look a lot like the 2 Weeks scene, doesn't it? Yeah, very weird. And I wonder, watching scenes like this, I always wonder how many takes they had to do to get it right.
Yeah.
And what the direction was like for her. What did they have to say to her to get that performance out of her?
Really good lighting in this scene too, where you've got the shadows of these crisscross patterns, sort of. We've talked a lot about the lighting design of this series, and that's one thing you can say over the course of the series, that quality never disappeared.
No, the lighting has always been excellent from the beginning of the show all the way through to the end of the 3rd season. That's a great observation.
And I guess that was what Jerry Finnerman was always the cinematographer, I guess.
Yep. Look at the shadows behind McCoy on the wall there. I mean, and they're on the wall there behind Romaine's beam. It's all really great.
Yeah,
great use of lighting to make an ominous situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's such subtle stuff that, a lot of viewers just feel.
Yeah, the shadows of them walking around the corner.
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's something that you don't really overtly notice, but it definitely impacts the way you're watching the scene.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, even the shading on Kirk's face there. Yeah, excellent. Now, did they request Romaine to beam down here, or did she just do it?
I thought Kirk called for her.
Oh, okay, maybe he did, and I missed it. Yep. So she's seeing that her premonition has come true, and now she has some sort of telekinetic power. She can tell when the storm in space is returning, which is interesting. So for a while, we're supposed to wonder whether or not the storm gave her some sort of premonition powers.
Yeah.
As it were. And I found this targeting system that they have, this proximity map they keep showing on the Enterprise bridge screen, to be weird. We don't see that all the time.
Yeah, I thought Sulu and Chekhov were playing like a prototype version of Tron.
It's like a video game.
My light cycles faster than yours.
All we've seen are manual games, like board games.
Yeah.
And card games in Trek. We haven't seen any video games. I guess maybe they figure PlayStation isn't around anymore. It's all gone. So, and here we got another example of someone getting stuck in a transporter beam. And of course, the regular inept transporter operator can't figure it out, and they need the heroics of Scotty to pull the levers in the right order in order to get her to show up. Like, the other guy couldn't do it, but he's studying now. He can do it next time.
You need that little, that subtle wrist.
Yeah, it's all in the wrist. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, this is the hero moment for Scotty.
Yeah.
So he's able to get her back. You would think that would be an automatic thing. They would have the transport computers programmed to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny how troublesome the transporter technology sort of been over the course of the series. And, a lot of times it's always in, making the plot a little bit more convenient.
Yeah, it works when they need it to work, and it doesn't work when they want to use it as a plot impediment.
Yeah.
So we saw Sulu evacuate the captain's chair as Kirk came in from the turbo lift. So Sulu was back in charge. So good for old Takei. So here's Spock once again, kind of being the rain on the parade here, and kind of shutting down all the ideas for escape. So once they zoom out here a little bit, there you go. Look at those interesting tools they have laying on top of that console.
Yeah.
Did you notice those? I'm not sure what all of them are supposed to be, but looks like a couple kind of wrench-looking things. Maybe a tuning fork and like a tape dispenser.
Tuning fork.
Yeah. Oh, there's that soft lighting again. Softer lens on the female close-up. So, and this is one of those scenes that I start to question Scotty's judgment in this episode, because he's obviously ignoring all of the things that are happening to her and just saying, "Oh, it's space, it's it's your first time in space. It's causing you to have all these problems." But I think he's just kind of glossing over the fact that an alien entity was on the bridge, caused her to pass out. I don't know, with all the past experience that he's had, it kind of shocks me that he would let his his emotions kind of dissuade her from seeking medical attention.
Well, I mean, love's a strong emotion, man.
Love's a strong emotion, but I'll tell you, I would want my significant other to seek medical attention and not die if they came into contact with something like that.
I think they're at the stage in the relationship where this is still sort of that young love, and I think there's definitely a concern that he'll lose what he has, and I think he wants to sort of maintain the moment or maintain the situation, and really sort of denying or looking past any potential problems is a way to do that.
Yeah, well, a man of Scotty's age should know better. Just
he should.
Saying. But with all that experience he's had, I mean, Kirk just got done saying how old he was. I would think that that Scotty would want to preserve what he has and make sure she's not losing her marbles, as it were, had some sort of debilitating brain effect from this thing. I mean, Scotty's seen so many different aliens and monsters that can, vaporize people and make them go crazy and take over their bodies. And
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I would say if he was just a naive teenager, just out of school, but I think with his body of experience, I think it's just questionable judgment in my opinion. But well, we differ, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I give him a pass. I mean, I give him a pass.
Okay, all right. Well, Spock is now telling us that there are actual life forms or life units, as he calls them, inside this cloud or storm or whatever it is. So there's something living in there. At least we've gotten that much.
So there's 10 of them?
10 of them. And they attack specific parts of the brain via some sort of brainwave. Brainwaves directed against the brain. So we still don't know what they're doing, why they're here. But I think it's interesting that Kirk is going to attempt, even after he's seen that they they've killed the entire contents of Memory Alpha, he's still going to attempt diplomacy first before actually firing, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very Kirk thing to do.
Just reinforces the character. So, pretty cool. But of course, it will be ineffective. I love the facial expressions on Shatner's face during this sequence.
Yeah. Here's a potential desktop.
Oh, yeah.
You pause it at the right moment. I don't know. And they're not looking directly at you.
It's true. And you could have some kind of like an icon in Kirk's eye line. So he's looking at some app on your computer.
Right.
Or a file or something.
Yeah, you do a screen grab from one of these Blu-rays, man. I think that would definitely look good on a monitor, with today's specs.
Yeah.
Although I guess the ratio would be off.
It would. Well, it's a 1080p image, but you'd have to crop out the black bars on the side and then stretch it, or if you didn't mind the black bars. Yeah. There's another great facial expression from Shatner. You can see. I love that non-physical acting by Shatner. He does such great expressions.
Yeah. And I think that's really his stage experience shining through.
Yeah, agreed. And
where you sort of had to act for the back of the room.
True.
That's a great shot.
It is. It is. Yeah, we might have to go back through here and grab a couple of shots.
Yeah, that's another one right there.
Huh.
This is director Herb Kenwith. Died in 2008 at the age of 90. And he is notable for directing the first episode of The Young and the Restless way back in 1973.
Wow.
That show ran for up until a couple years ago, if it's not still running. I know a lot of the soap operas finally ended. He also directed Good Times, One Day at a Time, and Different Strokes.
Oh, a couple of shows that I loved to watch when I was a kid.
Yeah, all in our wheelhouse.
Yeah, I was a big fan of some of those. Oh, very cool. So we've got some warning shots fired that don't appear to be doing anything. So we've got diplomacy first, a warning shot second, and only when there are no other alternatives does Kirk go for the kill. Yep.
Oof.
So interesting that the phasers have an effect on that entity, but the shields don't stop it.
Right.
So this is one of those instances where one technology works, but the others don't.
There's a lot of moments in this episode where I'm afraid that Kirk is going to jettison pod.
Yeah, the panic call from Scotty, he could have accidentally pressed the wrong button on that arm of his chair, and that would have sent somebody into space.
Watching Sulu at the controls here makes me wonder or makes me curious what kind of working knowledge the actors had of the control panels. and what they did to keep their actions consistent.
I remember reading, this might have been a Next Gen article, but I believe that a lot of them developed their own patterns for pressing buttons
Okay.
under certain conditions. I know. I think Will Wheaton had said that when certain orders were given to do certain things, he had a certain sequence that he would use over and over. I'm not sure if that applied to the original series, but I wouldn't doubt that it did, because you see Spock repeat a lot of the same button presses and things over on his console.
Right.
And Sulu was really good at that too. Takei was good at having the one hand perched kind of close to the top of the console while he operated something else that was out of eye shot. So
Yeah.
kind of gave it to look like he was doing something. Sort of like musicians who play on television shows when they're just getting piped in. They're not actually really playing anything, but they look like they are.
Yeah.
So they make it look good. So.
And now we've got sort of I guess this is Scotty finally coming to terms.
Yeah, and I mean, how often on the ship are you allowed to shirk your duties to be with somebody else? I mean, Scotty's like with her every second of this episode. They spend like no time apart.
Yeah, if you take into account Kirk's log, I think he's given Scotty a little bit of space. He's giving him a little bit of a benefit. I don't think he's going to let Scotty cross a line, but I think he's just maybe not being as strict with him as he could be. I think Kirk's a softie in that, in that area.
Yeah. Does everybody on the ship get that same privilege? I don't know. Does the garbage man get that privilege?
Is the garbage man in love?
He could be. We don't know.
Well, when he's in love, come talk to me.
All right. Well, not everybody can get screen time, man. So, I mean, it stands to reason that. Well, hey, what about that young couple who were getting married on the ship? They apparently had been together for a while, or did he let them carry on instead of doing their duties?
Well, they were getting married, so I think at that point they were both at a point in their relationship where they had locked each other down.
All right.
I don't know. I think Kirk's just sort of giving Scotty a little room to develop this young love.
All right.
This really should have been the Valentine's Day episode.
Yeah, really.
They should have held it for another month.
So Romaine, apparently, according to the log of her personal data, was born on Martian Colony 3.
Yeah.
So we've colonized Mars in Star Trek time. Something that is popular topic of conversation today in 2015.
Yeah. I mean, we're at this point we're talking about a manned mission to Mars, which would be a one-way trip.
Yeah. We've got a rover out there.
Yeah.
It's been sending back some incredibly cool photography.
Oh yeah.
And doing some cool sampling. So, yeah, I wonder if we'll actually see that manned mission in our lifetime.
I think we will. There's actually a really, really cool book out there. It sort of acts as a history of the space program, and at the same time a look ahead to the realities of what a manned mission to Mars would look like. And it's called Packing for Mars by Mary Roach.
Cool.
She's a really, really interesting writer. She tackles technical subjects, but at a level where a layperson or someone like me can understand and appreciate it. So it's very cool. Definitely worth checking out if you have any interest in the space program or like I said, the realities of what a mission to Mars would really entail. And in 2012 was when she wrote it.
Very cool. That was totally unscripted, by the way, listeners. Craig knew that off the top of his head.
Well, it's a book I've read and enjoyed.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like about this show, Jeff. I love the fact that we don't really do any preparation together for this.
No, we prepare separately. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we sit down, we say our hellos, and then get to it.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I really look forward to with this show every week is, watching the episode on your own, you come up with your own ideas and your own thoughts of things you want to talk about. But then all of that gets sort of shifted when you start talking with the other person, and I love it. I think my appreciation of Star Trek is so much deeper because of these conversations.
Yeah, mine too. Mine too. Now, here's another. Speaking of cool throwbacks to prior episodes, I've said this before that I love when Kirk seems to dip back into his previous experience to try to apply it to a current scenario.
Right.
And he starts asking about Romaine's prior telepathic, logged telepathic type abilities, as in something that he's seen prior to this that had been activated by an alien entity. So back in where no man has gone before, the telepathic capabilities and the telekinetic capabilities were activated in Gary Mitchell, and I guess maybe he's applying that lesson from his prior history to this and seeing if maybe it applies, but it doesn't. But I thought it was kind of cool as kind of a throwback to something he's experienced before.
Right.
And as we are coming to find out, this kind of reminds me a little bit of the Borg assimilation in a way, and it's more of a mental assimilation where these aliens were looking for someone who had the same brainwave pattern so that they could invade her body and take over and assimilate her and use her for their, or him or her for their own purposes. So this kind of reminds me of an assimilation in a way.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. I sort of really looked at this episode as almost like you'd look at an Exorcist movie or any kind of possession movie where somebody is possessed by an evil spirit. And this episode really, really plays like that for me.
It does especially have supernatural quality.
Well, especially when you factor in the love aspect. You've got sort of love fighting against this outside force that's trying to destroy somebody. For me, it seems like this script could very easily be transposed over to a demonic possession type story.
Oh, this could have been Cat's Paw too.
Yes. So we've got what could have been a Valentine's episode and what could have been another Halloween episode.
Yeah, very macabre. So that position that Scotty's sitting in right now is a little awkward.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not exactly sure what the intent was there. Is he trying to give her a hug? Is he? I'm not sure exactly what he was going for there.
He had his shoulder on the ready.
Yeah.
And she used it.
Scotty is a gentleman. So he's the comforting Scotty is coming out. So we're seeing a nice nurturing side of him. So we've seen Kirk do this before.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to see Scotty has that same quality in him. So, at least we know there's some sensitive ponytail guys on the Enterprise. Some kumbaya going on there. Everybody should whip out their little guitars and start playing. Gave my love a cherry that had no stone and all that stuff. So Shatner's hair looks quite product free in this episode, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not that usual heavily styled look. It looks a little bit. It looks combed and groomed, but it looks maybe they used some hairspray or something in this one, as opposed to like a comb-in gel or something.
Yeah, it actually looks kind of in tune with what's that dude's name? Vic, in Star Trek Continues.
Oh yeah, but I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, so I don't want to butcher it.
Yeah,
but
this might be the hair model episode that he used to model his hairstyle after.
There you go. I wonder if Shatner was a Dapper Dan man or a fop guy. What do you think of that?
Why don't you hop on Twitter and ask him?
I should do that. I wonder if he would answer me. The burning question.
I think it's all a matter if you catch him when he's looking at his Twitter feed.
Ah, yeah. Or his hand. There's that guy in the background doing who knows what to that yellow apparatus on the wall. He's just kind of spinning a wrench around.
An active extra who we are talking about years and years later.
Yeah, look at that. There he is again. What did he just do? I don't know, he's locking something down.
Yeah.
But the rapid escort of Romaine down the hallway with Scotty holding one hand and Kirk holding the other arm was... So here we're going to see a set piece that we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
And this should be familiar from the Space Seed episode, right?
Right.
So it was the compression chamber
that Kirk got put in.
Yeah, and it's really cool because usually when you see something repurposed, it's not used for the same purpose a second time.
Yeah.
But this time it's once again, it's used for a similar purpose.
Yeah.
But that visual effect is kind of strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scotty's hair is a little unstyled as well there.
Yeah, yeah. He almost looks like he could be a roadie for the Beatles.
I guess they only had enough money to get the comb and stuff for Spock this episode. Maybe the budget was real tight. So great. This is a great performance, by the way.
This is tremendous. This is top tier in my opinion. It's really some quality acting.
Yeah, even the rough episodes of Trek can often give way to some really great acting moments. So there's still some reason to watch these, even if you consider them at the bottom of your list. There's still a good reason to sit down and admire the work that was done in creating these episodes and the work put into them.
Yeah, and the reaction shots from Kirk here are remarkable. You have this slight smile from Kirk in that earlier shot where he sees her struggle and her fight, and it touched something inside of him. I think we've talked even earlier in this episode about that non-physical acting that Shatner does, but in a scene like this, the work that somebody who's doing all the heavy lifting, their spotter also is just as important. And I think this sequence, everybody does their job to a T.
I completely agree with that estimation. Very, very good. Even the poor schlub, the extra, who you don't even see his face, standing off to the side there.
Mm-hmm. He
holds his position well. No, just kidding. No, here's one of those moments where I was wondering, couldn't they just use like a stick and push her in? They don't kind of have to pick her up. I mean, they could just kind of flop her over. She's not really moving.
Yeah. And here's where we get sort of the Star Trek trope that it feels like we've heard 100 times during the series, with the race that died out and is just trying to survive.
Yep. And the plea for the life of the person that they're trying to take.
Yeah, it made me think of Metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Kirk, this almost feels like a speech we've heard Kirk say, almost word for word in other episodes before this.
Yeah, you're almost amazed there's not a computer in this episode.
He just called it, computer, read back what I said to Zephram Cochrane back then.
Yeah.
Just read that back off. But yeah, so this is a group of people, I guess, who were doomed and found a way to shed their corporeal selves and just become energy or entities that, I guess, roamed around outer space looking for somebody else to inhabit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's interesting that they're from a planet that Kirk and company already knew about. They know about Zetar and they know what happened to Zetar. So that's kind of cool. It's not just some mysterious alien from parts unknown.
Yeah.
It's actually from a known area, which is kind of cool. So the speech goes on for quite a while, but pretty much the same outcome. They're not going to give up. The currently living person But doesn't the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few?
Or the
Or
one.
the one? I mean, there's 10 of them and one of her. So whose needs are more important, according to Spock? So,
I mean, I don't know here because it seems like they had their shot already.
Maybe. We don't know how old they were. If they were younger than her, maybe she's had a better shot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now this is another questionable thing here is, of course, now that the Zatarian people inside of her know that the crew of the Enterprise is not going to let her go easily, why wouldn't she just kill them right then and there? If she could, why wouldn't she just do it?
She needs them to run the starship.
Maybe. I don't know. Khan read the book. I mean, he got that down pretty quick. She stands there. She could probably do it too. Yeah. Is that McCoy's booze stash you could see in the background behind that green painted glass?
And here we're gonna get some off-screen action, which I think is a little bit of a cheat.
Yeah, where Scotty just screams and flies off, right? Yeah, there's a shout, and then you see him falling backwards. You don't actually see him get shocked or pushed, or we assume it was some sort of telekinetic burst of energy, right, that pushed him backwards. But no rush to secure the chamber once she's in, though. Kirk has to actually say it, right?
Yeah.
But pretty cool set piece where the door slides closed like that.
Yeah.
I like that, an automatic thing. Well, there's probably guys behind the scenes making it close, but
I'm sure.
Yeah, I really love this levitation effect they have going on with her through the glass.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, she looks like she's floating to me.
Yeah, it made me think of probably a similar effect that they use for like the land speeder in the original Star Wars.
Yeah, good call. Good call. I love how they have a back window here.
Yeah, they got a little viewing portal.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So Scotty can actually go and watch. But I don't see wires holding her up, and you would think in the remaster really brings a lot of stuff out. And wonder how they did that.
I think she had really good core strength.
Ah, yeah. Maybe it's just the bottom half of her body is laying on top of something, and she can hold perfectly still. Interesting. And I love this customized controller on the wall that they have made for this, where the red line kind of goes up. We hear a lot about budgetary restrictions in the third season, but that's a pretty cool set piece there. That they can still use, and kind of makes it seem like they may have had more money than they did, but I know it's a reused piece and all.
Yeah.
But they're still in the red alert, obviously. The red alert thing's blinking on the wall behind them. So I'm not sure I really understood why a high amount of pressure would kill them.
Yeah.
Is that really explained?
No, I guess it's a matter of their physical makeup not being able to deal with certain amounts of pressure.
I guess so. I know Spock had theorized that they couldn't use the phasers, but they needed to find some sort of a natural way to kill them that wouldn't kill, the host.
Yeah.
At the same time. So, I'm wondering why they didn't go for some sort of a chemical. You would think McCoy would be able to cook up something.
It would have made for a much more boring climax.
You think?
Here, drink this. Roll credits.
Well, you never know. They could have had some really physical reaction to it. It could have been neat. They could have, pissed them off or something at first with the first attempt, and she could have gone on a rampage around the ship, throwing people around, and they had to try something different. And now here we're rewriting the whole episode, but so I love that Spock decides to hold his joke until the end, where he jokes about that Scotty's patience and not being able to wait for her to come out of the chamber there.
Right.
But interesting. So I guess we're getting kind of close to the end.
Yeah.
We're going to get a pretty cool wrap up to this episode, which I think is probably my favorite part of the entire episode. Once they get out of this chamber and we start talking about Scotty and Spock and Bones all agreeing on something.
Okay.
Pretty great wrap up to me. I love the character interplay between Shatner and the other characters here. This is it's a really cool moment in an otherwise kind of a humdrum episode.
Yeah.
To me, so it's always nice that you get a little character moment here and there.
Right.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, great stuff. So we get another. Of course, we're gonna have a little, human jab from old Spock. There, it's pretty cool. But so as we're getting, I guess, towards the end of the episode, we can start talking about our essential votes, if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with non-essential here, just because I don't think Planet Memory Alpha really plays into anything other than the great resource that we have here in our time period on the internet. And also, I'd say if this went on to like define Scotty's character or added to the character's history in terms of this love affair he had with Mira. But all of this is really sort of non-essential information in the grand scheme of things. So I'm really going non-essential on this episode. As much as I like this episode, and I do enjoy this episode.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to agree. Part of me wanted to push it towards the essential because of all of the Scotty character building and character information, but it really doesn't apply going forward.
Yeah, I mean, next episode, it's just, the reset button's hit.
Yeah, business as usual. It's not like we see him doing something similar in the future, or this has some sort of a longer impact. So I'm going to have to go non-essential as well on this.
It's allowed. It happens.
Yeah. So, all right. And that wraps up our 73rd episode of the Tricorder Transmissions. So it's been great getting back in the chair.
Yeah.
And talking again. It's been a while. So thank you all in listener land for putting up with our brief break that we took here. So we've been off for 2 Sundays. So hopefully we will be consistent going into the future, back on our normal schedule.
Yeah. And make sure to join us over at the website, the Tricorder Transmissions, over on the Facebook page, which you can link to through there, or even on Twitter at TTT_pod. I know we have our normal weekly interactions on all of those platforms from different listeners out there, and I know I look forward to them. I know Mike normally chimes in on Twitter, letting us know that we're helping him, along with several other Star Trek themed podcasts, getting through a work day.
Yes. So hopefully we'll talk to you all very soon on social media, and thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
The Lights of Zetar was written by one of the world's most famous puppeteers. Together with her puppet Lamb Chop, Shari Lewis had entertained millions of people around the world. She and her husband, Jeremy Tarcher, invented this story simply because they enjoyed the show so much. When they pitched the story to Fred Freiberger, he rejected it, first time around, because a similar idea was already being worked on. He asked them to develop a second script which would inject some comedy into the show. When she returned to pitch that one, Freiberger informed her that he wanted to buy her first story after all, because the similar storyline had not worked out. She says she chose to feature my character because Kirk always romanced the ladies and she felt it was Scotty's turn.